let's talk a little bit because you moved to LA and I want to be mindful of the time
Yeah, yeah,
because
sure.
we got to get you over to the jazz showcase
All
in
right,
time.
cool.
But I don't want to not bring up the Halsey thing because you went from doing all of this stuff in Chicago, you moved to LA, and the reason
Hmm.
why I'm bringing up Halsey is I want to hear how that started. But you also kind of like created a whole synthesizer. I mean, that's like another edge of creativity, right? I mean, they weren't really that you created a sound there, didn't you? I mean, that was something that I remember you and I think emailed back and forth, maybe talking on the phone once or something when you were just kind of starting to tour and things like that. And it was one of those things where you had to really like invent some of this stuff, right? In order to make it work. I don't know if you invented it, but you really created a lot of stuff. And that's another outlet for your creativity. Am I on the right track?
Yes, with a
Okay.
caveat.
Thank God. At least I was on the right track.
My experience with Halsey was a whirlwind of learning and diving into so many things that I would have never tried to figure them out
Hmm.
if I hadn't been there in that situation. And it feeds into what I do now. We built an entire way of doing those live shows from the ground up. And it started with me with my personal laptop and my my keyboards that I used as MIDI controllers and some software that I had bootlegged at the time that I'd since bought the legit versions when we started making money.
Right.
But our first show was to 80 people at SIR or something in LA when she fainted on stage and I had to carry her off. They didn't allow phones in there, so there's no footage of it. But like that, it was it we started when she first got signed to Capitol Records, and they got rid of her high school band and found the professionals, which are me and Nate Lotz, and then Vinny Farah, who had already been on board the MD, and they had found me and Nate to like do the music. So we went in there using our own personal gear and we were like, okay, here's the music. How are we going to bring this to a live stage in the most effective way? And so I had to learn all about all the Native Instruments plugins, what they do, how to manipulate the three oscillator system within Massive, the plugin, and then all of the like 20 options for each oscillator of the type of audio wave that you would use and how they fit together and using the filters. And I'd never gotten into that stuff before.
And you probably would, you're right. You probably would have never gotten into that because you didn't,
Mm-mm.
why would you have?
And the reason that I got into that was because of the brilliance of her producer at the time, which is a guy named Lido, who's now a good friend of mine. And you can see some of the videos that he and I did together on the series Tiny Room that we'll talk about.
Hmm.
Um, he is this young, like early 20s, maybe mid to late 20s now, but just a young producer who was using all of this technology that he had grown up on to do weird shit that he wanted to be original on. And that's one of the reasons that her music was successful in the first place, was because of the originality of his works.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, along with her brilliant songwriting and her lyrical style, like she's an incredible artist herself. It was the entire village, along with her management and everybody that did the things right. It was
Right.
incredible to see, man.
Yeah. I mean,
From
you were there watching this whole thing and you were part of the whole
Yeah,
thing.
and
It was
I was a
amazing.
small part. I was a small part in the giant fabric or all the gears of that organization. They kept adding gears on as it went. It got
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger until I was like, okay, I've done everything I can do here. I need to move on. Like this is amazing. And we just played Saturday Night Live and dropped the mic. I need to go
That was the night
do me.
you retired from the band.
Yeah,
Yeah, you played Saturday Night Live, and then you were that was the end of your tenure. But you were with her for 4 years.
three,
Three.
3 years, 3 years from small clubs to selling out Madison Square Garden and Allstate Arena and other places
And
around the
you were
country.
just it was you and the drummer, right? I mean, that was the band. I mean, when you first
And
started.
and Vinny, the guitarist and
Okay.
MD, he joined us when it got big enough to afford to bring a third person. He joined us to play those parts as well, like some SPD things and some
Hmm.
guitar stuff and some acoustic bass. Though I was still doing most of the bass with synthesizers. Um, but yeah, and then it stayed the 3 piece, well 4 piece if you include her,
Right.
until I mean even on Saturday Night Live the stage isn't big enough, so Vinny didn't even play. It was just me and Nate.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and that was the night that I mean because we had played all the late night talk shows at that
Right.
point, and my participation wasn't changing. I was still doing the thing that I was going to be doing. If I stayed on it for 5 more years, it would have been the same thing. And I'd grown so much during that time, but it had gone like whoosh.
Yeah.
And now, at least as far as my participation went, and it was a beautiful time. I remember giving her a hug at the end of that night and talking about it, and she was like, "You call me anytime, like if you need me, like you too,
Yeah.
like we've got each other."
Yeah.
And um, and it was the right time for somebody who was younger than me and who needed that opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to sit in that seat and go play arenas for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I needed to go to LA. I needed to build the studio.
Well, you were writing your original music, didn't you? For Spirit Fingers, didn't you put out Polyrhythmic right after you left the band, or maybe it was during or something? But I remember you left the band, left Halsey, and then you were like, I don't know, maybe a month or two later. I remember you were either here or somewhere, and then you started touring with Spirit Fingers. Right?
I did. That happened quickly as
Yeah.
well. So my band, which it was called Polyrhythmic at the time,
Okay.
because that was the basis of the music.
That's polyrhythmic.
Was polyrhythms.
Yeah, definitely.
And the reasoning there's a particular reasoning to that. And by the way, we don't have to stop right at the 40 minutes. It's okay for me to be a little late, because I do want to talk about some of this stuff.
Good.
It's cool, like to be able to talk about it, because I actually don't do that many interviews like this. Usually it's like little snippets and things here and there.
Yeah.
But the polyrhythmic material, the compositions that we play in Spirit Fingers, those are things that I wrote in the second year that I was with Halsey. I remember we were touring the UK, and already by that point, I had been playing the same. When you're a pop artist, you play the same songs.
Yeah.
Um,
it's a show, and since you're in different arenas every night, different venues, you're playing the same show to a different audience.
Yeah, you're hitting the pavement, getting the music out there, which is exactly what you should be doing, which she knew, which she did.
Yeah.
And we did right along with her. But man, it gets hard.
It's all one-nighters probably, right? Especially at the beginning.
Yeah,
it's just like
you play
boom,
a
boom,
show.
boom, boom.
We'd play a show at a club. It'd be packed. We'd play the same exact set. Pack up into the tour bus, move to the next city. Play, move to the next city. Play, move to the next city. And it was great. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. But the songs are 4 chords, which pop songs should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. They're amazing songs. The song and you're playing the same songs every night. So I call it in interviews. It's gotten to be called like a musical cabin fever. I'm stuck in the cabin of this musical landscape, which it's brilliant, but it's the same one. And I had to give my mind some exercise. I had to take myself out of that comfort zone. So what I would do, it was in the UK. I remember, and I would go up to that right after the show every night. I would go back to the tour bus. I'd carved out this little space in the upper deck of the tour bus, because it was a double-decker tour bus, and made my little office there with my Yamaha Reface CP and my laptop plugged in via MIDI. I would go onto Ableton Live and program some weird shit on the drums. I would put 17/16 time signature over 4/4, see where it lined up, listen to it over and over and over and over again, and like it would twist my brain upside down, and like just hearing it, and then write a melody to it or write chord changes to it. And then I would hear that because I was looping it, and then I would write something else on top of that, and it turned into these counterpoints that all became the polyrhythmic composition.
Yeah. I was going to ask you just conceptually how you go about writing that, but that makes total sense. I mean, you're isolating your mind, first of all, because you just got finished with this incredible show. Everybody, it's packed, and it's loud, and your body's vibrating still and stuff. And you went in and just kind of like, this was almost like a meditative state that you could get yourself into, and just switch gears and just like, boom. And you had license to be able to do 16 over 4 and all this other stuff, and just kind of, you know what I mean. Yeah. But I'm thinking fast. But,
it's all good.
I'm a drummer, man. I don't want to play that. Right. but you're able to just experiment, just wild, free experimentation, right? Because you're locked in one way, and then just boom, you just blew it out. That makes total sense to me.
And it was a meditation.
Yeah.
And you hear that in the music too. Originally, when we played the pieces, they were 20 minutes long. That's what the live videos are. Right. If you look on YouTube.
I've seen some.
But we toned down the length of it for the Shanachie record, because they wanted to be able to play it on radio and all that.
Right.
Radio would even play this sort of stuff. I don't know. I mean, it did though.
Yeah. The thing about that writing and about that music and about this band is that I feel like when you're listening to a band that's playing in different time signatures, there's two ways to go about it, right? And I relate it back to Sting. And Sting plays in different time signatures, especially the 10 Sumner Tales and all that stuff. I mean, Vinny's playing drums and Sting and everything. But nobody knows some of that stuff's in 7. Nobody knows it's in 4 or in 5, but because it's grooving. It's
Mm-hmm.
grooving. The music's over the top of it. It's grooving. Nobody knows. The musicians know. The musicians are digging it because this is great. Now, listening to yours. And then the other side is that, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, that it's in a different time signature. With your stuff, it flows over the top. It grooves. So the casual music fans, the people that are just kind of like really into what's happening, it's a great vibe. Or the musicians are really into it too, but it grooves no matter what time signature. And I think that's the key
Yeah.
to really being successful, being able to get creative and do that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree. It's all the thing is. So there's a big difference between the grooves that these incredible pop artists like Sting do on their odd time signature works, and then what I'm exploring in this concept. And I think there's an additional level of complexity to what I'm doing that makes it completely inaccessible to somebody who just wants to listen to
Yeah,
a pop
right. Well,
song.
yeah.
Because there's a skip, the way it's made on a micro level, whereas like, okay, so Sting has songs and there's a 7/4 thing that is cyclical, it repeats in the long form, but you can write a melody over it, and the melody has still the one pulse that's like consistent.
Mhm.
This is like ding 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 ding, and
Yeah,
that's the cycle.
right.
That's 17, 16 done 4 times over a long 17, which is 4/4 with a 5 at the end. And it can be taken in the brain in so many different ways. And that's the thing that makes it exciting to me, and that makes it exciting to a lot of musicians. But the thing that makes it accessible is the fact that there is an elongated backbeat underneath it. And that goes back to what I was listening to at the time, which one of the bands that we were touring with at the time was The Weeknd. And all of their music is like, I mean, not all of it, but the most popular ones at the time were really slow backbeat songs. And I would listen to their show every night that we were on tour with them. I probably listened to that show 30 times. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's such a great band. And it's all like, do ga, do, like that long of a backbeat sometimes. Like
Right.
kick over here, snare over here, and that's the cycle. And so when I was writing this music over the long over that odd time signature, there's always the long backbeat, and it usually goes like the kick at the beginning of the micro odd time signature, and then the snare in the middle of it, and then the kick at the end of it, and then like, which the way that Mike Mitchell executed it on the record is also a giant part of why it works, because of his influences and his depth of like being able to play pocket and all the crazy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
There aren't a lot of drummers who can do that,
Yeah.
who can do both of those things, like really play the pocket and understand urban music to that depth, be so immersed in it, and also play all the crazy virtuosic shit.
Yeah.
That's why I picked him for the album.